know, let's start there, and then we'll continue with questions.
I don't know if there's necessarily anything, like we touched the big pieces. We touched on the fact that the little c conservative Jewish view, even if you want to adhere to a very high level of observance, would still be in opposition to an outright ban. And I think in the Jewish world, we have a little bit of the understanding of that decision is between you and your doctor, and if you choose to include your rabbi in that decision, that's your choice. And that our decisions are innately personal and should not, our legal system does not exist to necessarily micromanage healthcare decisions. Now, the Jewish legal system micromanages everything else in your life, but when it comes to the medical field, the Jewish answer is trust the doctor. Trust the doctor. Do not be so chutzpahdik as to turn a blind eye to all of the education and all of the experience that our medical professionals have. So to bring a full circle, it's a personal decision, and ultimately that's why an outright ban is not in accordance with Jewish values. What you do independently is up to you. So that's the getting the more political side of it. So JFS is not allowed to, under its auspices, is not allowed to make political statements because they receive federal funding. And so that's why we are now under CBT auspices, where we are able to take a political stance on an issue. So we're allowed to really yell, vote no from the rooftops here, as you saw as you came in. So this is our chance to kind of be a little more free in that type of rhetoric.
Thank you. Again, another addition. And maybe now from the legal perspective, anything, again, additionally that we should be thinking about or knowing, or even just that is more of a passion for you, we'd love to hear that too.
One of the things that we have eroded already in our society is access to educate children in school about science and the human body. And what the human body is. Thank you. Is that better? Okay, yep, you're good. So one of the things that we have going on in our society right now is the erosion of teaching healthcare to children about their own body and in science. So we are not teaching kids the birds and the bees, we're teaching abstinence education. That means for a girl or a person with a uterus, that person does not know cycle day 1 and what that means. They don't know when they ovulate or when they should ovulate, to know if there is something wrong, to even ask their doctor, because we have decided as a society that it's okay. That's a home decision on talking about healthcare and the human body for our kids.
Thank you.
Well, you talked about the medical stuff, so can you guys hear me okay?
When you're looking towards...
You can hear me, okay. She talked about the medical stuff, so what I'm going to tell you is I went to vote today, and it's scary. We need everyone to go out and do their part to help maintain our patients' autonomy. Patients are scared. I have teenage girls that come see me for checkups that are scared. And the misinformation that's out there has me thinking that a lot of the people that are voting yes to this question on the ballot, I really don't think a lot of them know what it really means. I respect people who don't want to see abortions performed. I respect their point of view. But I don't think that when they're being fed misinformation like they're being fed right now, that they necessarily understand exactly what it is they're voting for.
So on that topic, and I did have somebody that just said their first question, but said it was going to be more of a statement than a question, which is also fine. So I'll take the prerogative to ask the first question. How can, do folks on the panel or if folks in the audience have, want to share too, raise your hand. What is something that we can do when we are talking with our neighbors and whoever to help get past the misinformation that is out there? Do folks have an opinion as to what is the most successful thing that we should be covering in those likely short conversations?
I think they need to know that a lot of people that have abortions struggle. I think that some of the people in the Value in Them Both movement have it so black and white that people that are going out and terminating pregnancy are doing it without much thought. And the reality is that that's a very difficult decision for a person to make no matter what. And patients to not be trusted to think that they know what's best for themselves. The thing is the campaign that the Value in Them Both is running with a lot of the big banners that you maybe have seen along the major thoroughfares and stuff, they're not honest. They're not telling the truth. This isn't just about whether or not abortion should be done or not. And they have people that maybe are pretty reasonable pro-life people fired up because they think that doctors like me are out there trying to tell people to terminate term babies.
Yeah. Thank you. Any from the other panelists, anything again that from your sense of what we should be communicating to folks, our neighbors and others, of educating them to get past some of the misinformation?
I was just going to say what doesn't work, because I received a crumpled up note on my lawn after I put out my Value Her Choice sign, which I believe you'll be able to get this evening if you would like one. I received a crumpled up printout of an article written by someone who worked for a Catholic university. It's saying that, oh, no, don't worry, Value Them Both will still allow for abortions in case of rape or incest. And they just left that on my lawn. That's not the way to go about doing it. They have their talking points too. I read about 3 paragraphs and then I put it in the recycling bin. Hopefully it will, in that piece of paper, next life, it will be part of something more that contributes to society.
Yeah.
So I've been spending my summer in rural Oklahoma. And one of the things that has come up in our community is a gate. There is a physical gate blocking access to federal core land on the lake that has a lot of my neighbors who are very red in their beliefs, very big Trump supporters, angry and mad as all get out over this gate. And I talk to them and I say, listen, this is what big government looks like. It is cutting off your access. This is what is actually happening. And it just now affected you. That has hit home for my neighbors in rural Oklahoma harder than anything else. They are seeing the impact. So a neighbor or a person is going to tell you about a problem. And if you can see how it is because of government control of their freedom and point that out to them, it really hits home. Conservatives are not small government. They are not for small government. They are for currently taking your ability to educate yourself and for promulgating laws that have government interference in your human life. And if you can not attack, that's the wrong word, but if you can point out how that attack by these laws is happening, it makes an impact.
Thank you. Lindsay, welcome. The first session was wonderful. We'll let you get settled. And then there was somebody who wanted to make a brief comment, but then I would come back to you because we let everybody on the panel just give a minute to say if there was something, from the previous wonderful discussion that you didn't yet have a chance to say. So as you're getting a second to think about that, there was a comment, and I'll just hold the mic for just.
My name is Dr. Ron Zipper. I am an orthopedic surgeon, an old one, so I'm not doing very much surgery anymore. But that being said, there was a term that we invented about 30 years ago called evidence-based medicine. And it tends to be what is the best techniques that we have found in the past 5 to 10 years. And as physicians, we are supposed to practice those techniques, which are called the standard of care. And we've taken an oath called the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm, to follow those statutes. What this law is doing is not only have I done surgery, but I've been on evidence-based medicine committees for over 30 years. And because of that, I have served as an expert witness when there is a doctor who says, do this, or a doctor who says, no, I have a difference of opinion, let's do this. I'm supposed to be the independent doctor. And what this law is doing is eliminating the ability of an expert witness to help a medical condition. And it comes down to doctors will be persecuted for not following a law that has nothing to do with the standard of care or the evidence-based medicine. It collides with that, and with that is going to, the damage will come to not only the patient, but also the doctor, but particularly the patient, because we will not be allowed to practice the standard of care that we know best.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And then Lindsay, did you have an additional comment to add?
No, just please make sure to vote. That's really, please. And I think the previous question was about how to help people that are on the other side. And so just to piggyback off of what Christina was just saying too, if we're having conversations, because that's one of the hardest things with people that might have a different view. I have Republican family members who are on the same path, because essentially, if you are a conservative, you believe that government should not interfere with people's lives, right? These are my family members, okay? And we disagree on so much, and we have agreed on this issue. And that's really where I think if you are having these conversations, and I apologize, I didn't even know you guys were in here. I was out there talking to my friends. And they're like, Lindsay. But it's really something that using that as, a way to have that conversation is going to be an opening to try to change minds, because they don't believe in big government, and yet they are trying to essentially be in someone's life in the most private way possible. So there is hope to, go and talk to your loved ones or family members who maybe you've lost contact with, because I will tell you, there are conservatives who are fully against this.
Thank you. Another question or?
Yeah, a medical question. We hear a lot of hypotheticals about what if and what if and what if. A couple of weeks ago in Indiana, there was a real case where a 9-year-old girl was repeatedly raped, became pregnant. What is a prognosis for a 10-year-old girl who's pregnant?
The medical prognosis or the emotional prognosis or what?
Yes,
Financial
those.
prognosis?
Yeah. Well, medically speaking, she'll be taken care of medically. She'll carry a pregnancy and birth a baby. She'll be traumatized for the rest of her life.
The baby will be traumatized.
But as far as, the medical management, I wouldn't expect it would be that much different. There's a higher risk of preterm birth in young and adolescent mothers because their nutrition isn't as good. There's a higher rate of suicide and mental health problems. There is higher rate of preeclampsia and hypertensive disorders of pregnancy in younger mothers. Having said that, this issue should best be phrased being pro-birth, because if they were pro-life, then they would care about the welfare of that 9 or 10-year-old child that's going to be forced to carry a pregnancy that's already been sexually assaulted.
And can you talk about how delivery will look for her because her pelvis isn't?
Well, sure. Yeah, puberty doesn't happen overnight, and so that's part of the reason they're at risk for low birth weight infants and malnutrition, is because her body knows that it's probably not really prepared to deliver a 7.5, 8 pound baby. And so she's going to get preeclampsia probably in the early 3rd trimester and be subject to a premature delivery, potentially having a baby that has lifelong needs because it had a NICU stay and wasn't ready to be born. So there are significant consequences to adolescent, I'm calling it adolescent, but to young first-time mothers having pregnancy and having babies. There are huge health ramifications. As far as how she's managed medically, it's probably not much different, but the socioeconomic, the mental health, and the effect on her body long-term going through that is, not repairable.
Thank you. I think we had another question here.
Just a comment. I can't help thinking that some people are not thinking through the fact that legislators who don't have a medical education are making these laws because we're kind of used to insurance company people who have not a medical education making determinations about our medical care.
But at least with the insurance company, this is a person whose job it is to look at these things. It is their whole job that they're doing in and out 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And there are parameters and there are safeguards. You can
Easily fired than a legislator.
yeah, and you can appeal.
We
They-
can talk
they
about
could be
universal
more
health
easily
care all
fired.
you want.
Yeah. You can take an appeal. There is no appeal other than having to be a person who is pregnant and suing the legislature or suing in the court system about these laws. That's our only safeguard. So from a legal perspective, we are going to see lawsuits increase, but we're going to have the right victim, unfortunately.
Thank you. One question back here, and then I've got another question up front.
Okay. I have a scenario question for Rabbi Kleinman. And so if pretend, and this, I don't think you'll have to pretend too far, that you've got a young congregant that comes to you that's 15, 16, 17 years of age, and she's pregnant, and she's afraid to tell her parents. Let's complicate it with the fact that parents you've observed with tempers, being abusive, and so seeking counsel and wanting to know what to do. I'm not going to ask you to resolve it for us right here, but in your mind, what ethical issues does these trigger laws and the potential of a complete and total ban on abortion present to you as an advisor and a mentor?
Absolutely. So I can't speak to it necessarily from a legal perspective because I don't think this would not fall under mandated reporter, and I don't think in any way, shape, or form. So really, it would be between me and that young person. And from a Jewish legal perspective, I would encourage her to say, are you ready to provide a life for this future child? Do you feel equipped to do this? Is it in your best interest? Because one of the criteria that you can use in Jewish tradition to support termination of a pregnancy is the birthing parent's well-being, physical and mental. And if this child that will be born one day does not have a parent who can provide for them the way that a child deserves to be provided for, and that is up to the individual. What does deserve mean and look like? I think it was well within that young person's right to request an abortion. I don't know the legal ramifications of it. I don't know with different states and who has to tell their parents and whatnot, but I would try to be an advocate for that young person, whatever they decide. And should they decide to terminate that pregnancy, I would absolutely support them in that decision.
And then from the legal opinion, anything to add? I think because we've talked a little bit about some of the risks for medical providers, but then for clergy, and again, if this is off beyond your current understanding, that's fine. Feel free to say that, but maybe anything to add.
So with mandated reporters, there has to be an action of abuse. So in my opinion, having looked at these laws that are currently enacted in Kansas and Missouri, we do not have a mandated reporter level to these. You don't have, as a clergy, you don't have to tell everyone and their dog that this person has had an abortion. Oh, did you know that Susie got an abortion last week? I just can't believe that. You don't have to report that to the state. It can remain private. Where I am concerned is if, let's say, Sweet Susie tells her friend, hey, I don't know, I might be pregnant, I don't know, this is all bad. And then that child tells his or her parent, who has very, very strong views about this, that then under the Texas law, sues Susie and wants access then to her medical records as a layperson on the outside. And then wants to also, oh, well, we think she may have told Rabbi, so let's sue Rabbi as well.
So a lot of risk. Question here?
First of all, this is just driving me crazy. My sister said it was because of the older men, but I just was wondering how come Viagra is not taken off the, I'm serious about that because the pill, I don't understand, are they trying to take the pill off the record now? You can't take the pill anymore? Like the birth control? Yes.
Well, I think that's what people are concerned about with Justice Clarence Thomas looking at wanting to address LGBT rights and contraceptive rights. With regard to contraception, the Affordable Care Act, as it stands right now, guarantees access to contraception. Now, there are some certain circumstances when your insurance is provided by, say, a Catholic church or
Hobby Lobby,
where the Supreme Court has upheld their right to refuse that. But with regard to this bill, there's no verbiage in there right now that says. I wasn't taking it to prevent. Correct. So sick. Yeah, They gave me the pill. Correct. I mean, we use medications all the time. That's what I'm asking. Yeah. No, not yet. No. An example. There are medications we use for women that have for like overactive bladder and vaginal dryness and things like that are hormonal, like estrogen cream, right? Estrogen cream is not covered by Medicare. And the women that tend to need it are of Medicare age. Those medications for a tube this big, cash pay is probably about $250. Viagra is covered by Medicare. And I remind my patients that laws are made by elderly white men.
Yeah. Where we started on that. Thank you. Another question right here.
I have a
comment. About 30 years ago, my ex-husband and I adopted 3 children from Costa Rica. And I bring this up because the way the new immigration law came about under Reagan was that Senator Metzenbaum and others forced Congress to also allocate money for what were defined as hard-to-adopt children or child groups, including international adoptions. And that's the best they could do then under Reagan. There's a new immigration, they got a new immigration bill. A lot of people who would not have had the money to adopt hard-to-adopt children, who are sometimes the victims of these kinds of incidents, were able to basically open their hearts and raise these children. And I know specifically Metzenbaum was one of the people that really pushed it in the Senate.
Unfortunately, and you might be able to elaborate, adoption of a child is probably one of the most corrupt things that is, the process of adopting a child is probably one of the most corrupt things that goes on. And that's unfortunately where a lot of the hypocrisy is here. They're making 10-year-old children have babies, but the process of adopting out that baby, it's nearly impossible. And so
60% of birth mothers who have placed their child for adoption while pregnant change her mind once baby is born. 60%. Adoption is extraordinarily expensive. We are not able to access it financially unless you are of means. An adoption through an adoption agency here in Johnson County is over $80,000. Okay? And we're not talking that perfect white baby from the 1950s. We're talking about babies with medical disability. We are talking about babies who are going to have problems, mental, physical problems throughout their life. Cutting off abortion does not increase care or live birth. Why? Because those who can afford an abortion can still find a way. So instead of it costing $750 for that abortion, she's now going to pay $1,000 and travel because she's going to spend that $250 to travel out of state. Abortions for those who can afford it will still happen. We are taking away the rights of women who are having wanted pregnancies and who are at an age that they can financially afford children. We're not stopping 13-year-olds.
We're increasing the risk of high-risk pregnancy, as one of you alluded to, the medical risks of a younger person having a pregnancy. So you're increasing the need for people on welfare and the cost of helping people that don't have means to care for themselves.
And then one more question here.
Oh, are you holding it? Okay. About 2 weeks ago, my daughter and I went out to protest. And it was not a big organized group like I've been in before, but yet it still drew well over 100 people. And, most of the people were my daughter's age, but there was another woman about my age, and she said to me, "What are we doing here? We've been through this. We've been down this road. This is nothing we thought would ever get thrown out." So my question to you is, what can we do?
When you go to protest, make sure that your phone is set to a passcode, not your fingerprint, not your face ID. that's what I would do first and foremost. I want a 4-digit code that I have to enter, because that prevents police from holding a phone up to your face and unlocking it and now having access to everything in your phone. It prevents, you're not compelled. You can't be forced to tell that passcode. So you can keep your private information private while you're at that protest, after that protest, if you, God forbid, are arrested.
Thank you. Other thoughts about what we do between now and August 2nd?
I think, as Lindsay said, have those difficult conversations. I think one of the pieces that gets lost in this whole yard sign versus yard sign, bumper stickers piece is the faces and the people. And I think when people feel safe, they're willing to be vulnerable and they're willing to share. And so as hard as it is sometimes to be open and compassionate with someone who you know has a very different opinion from you, as well as an opinion that, you know, denies your humanity, it's hard to be the bigger person, but that, I think, is what wins it over. To share a story, to present something vulnerable, and perhaps someone will share a vulnerability with you. But I think it's the person to person. If it came down to dollars, then we've already lost. But that doesn't mean that, you know, that we can't make a difference.
Remind people that the voting booth is actually still a sanctuary. Let them know. No one else is in that voting booth with you. You can vote your conscience in that voting booth and not put another law on the books that we don't need.
Anything? And again, I think this was we've got.
Well, and I think that this, while I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be after August 2nd, I do think that this has spurred some things across just generations that we didn't used to think about or discuss. We thought Roe v. Wade was said and done, right? So this all just feels surreal, but there is a lot that is going to come out of this, whichever way it goes. It's put a spotlight on things that we wouldn't normally talk about, and frankly, why are we still talking about them? For me, one of the hardest things is, as a young mother, the expense associated with children in this day and age is exceptionally high. We are essentially targeting a socioeconomic group of people that will not be able to get on a plane to go have an abortion, who will not be able to get great care. We are going to see a generation of people that are going to be underfunded and underrepresented. To pay attention to that, to know that your voice matters, to having those conversations. I want you guys to know that when I gave birth, so my twins are 2.5 years old, I have insurance, we have pretty good insurance. It was $6,000 for us to deliver. $6,000 was our bill.
By contrast, I have federal health insurance. It cost $125 for me to give birth at Shawnee Mission Medical Center. Okay, there is the contrast.
And most of our state legislators are under government insurance, ironically, and don't have
federal
that.
insurance.
Oh.
I have federal health insurance.
How do you do that?
I marry well.
Oh. Great. Well, I'm screwed.
Yes.
No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
you marry well.
Great. But this is what we're facing with. You know, we have these people that are saying that they are pro-babies and we want to support the babies, but then when they're here, there are no social safety nets. You know, 30 years ago, I'm 38, okay? There was legislation on the books that was trying to provide universal child care. And it was struck down because they didn't want the message to be that kids should be away from their families. Well, guess what? That would have helped me and a lot of the society that I live in, where as a woman, it doesn't make sense for me to work because I have to pay for childcare. There are other issues. The fact that we are still talking about this and that we're saying that women have a basic right to make their own medical decisions, the fact that this is even being pushed on us, which by the way is about $4 to $5 million from the Catholic Church in our state, the fact that we are still talking about this is putting all of these other issues down on the ladder. It's a way to put a whole gender or a whole group of people down just by having to say and having to go to the polls and debate this. It is infuriating.
And it is also creating more poverty.
Yes.
Because women are graduating college at a higher rate than men. Women are being educated. How do you attack women's education? You don't let them out of the home. You keep them barefoot and pregnant.
And I think
And the line that
another
I heard-
question here.
Oh, if I could just add one more pithy
Absolutely.
line that is, as a result of this, is now rapists get to choose the parent of their child.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
That there's no male responsibility in this. This is putting all on women's shoulders. The Texas law has to do with persecuting women. That there is no sense of responsibility because, it takes a sperm too to make this happen. And to the Viagra comment is that this is all being placed squarely on women's shoulders, which is absolutely reprehensible.
I was on the Zoom before I drove out here. There were things, especially from the doctor, but from all of you that were said that I wasn't aware of, how doing away with Roe is going to impact healthcare. I think the simplicity that some people have brought to this issue, particularly here because we have an opportunity to vote, is in Kansas, the legislation. So are we having other forums like this? Do you know of other forums like this? I mean, we don't have a whole lot of people here tonight, but there were probably more people on the
Watching at home.
the Zoom. And I'm thinking, are we writing letters to the editor? I mean, I'm not sure how to reach all the people.
And then we'll be having some of that conversation later, but also in Rabbi. And then I think just with...
I want, David, if you don't mind, if you could hand the mic to Krista behind you, because I think this is the perfect place. So I'm happy to introduce
a little bit about what I've done, not only in this election, but in previous ones. And what I needed to do personally was find an area that I was good at. And one of the things I'm good at is talking and writing. Not necessarily to a large group of people. This makes me a little uncomfortable. But I have a gift for putting things into words. And I realized that I needed to use my passion about issues, and I needed to reach out to people in the community. And how I started was when the election was going on in Georgia, I wrote letters. And I sat at my kitchen table every night, and I wrote, I think, over 250 letters to get people to vote. We were not allowed to tell them how to vote, but we were supposed to reach people in Georgia to encourage them to get to the polls. And after that election, Brett said to me, as close as this election was when Georgia flipped, you really could have made a difference. So that kind of inspired me to think, gosh, I took something that I'm good at. I'm not good at public protests or getting really angry other than at home. But I'm not great at that type of thing. But what I
didn't tell him.
I know that. I'm owning it. But then during this election, when I was really upset about this, I decided, well, what am I good at? I'm great at texting. I'm great at connecting people. I'm great at figuring out where to get things, materials, how to get them to people. And I had this huge network on Facebook of people that were messaging me because every time I saw a post, I would put a link on there, here's how you register to vote, and here's the deadline. And this is where you can go. And these are all of the deadlines. And then I started having people that would send me side messages, and I was able to get signs to people. I'm going to be doing a phone bank on Monday through Kansans for Constitutional Freedom. I absolutely don't want to do this, but a woman called me. We had a good conversation last night, and I was like, all right, I can do this. I'm also text banking. So what my point is not about what I'm doing, but my point is if you can find one thing that you are good at and you can channel that, not maybe in 2 weeks we can't make a huge change, but there's another election coming up. We have to get active, and by doing this and reaching out to people, even on the underground, you don't have to be the loudest to get a lot done. And the last thing, I actually think that 2 people that I texted had a lot of really good questions, and I might have persuaded them to actually see another point of view. In the end, it was a thank you. I know this person sent me a link to what he does in Manhattan, the Night of Lights. It was a male. And I think I made a difference. So there's 2 votes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kansasforfreedom.com is the website for. So Kansasforfreedom.com.
And they will find you. They will call you. I know it's scary to pick up your phone, but if you see a 785 area code calling, pick it up, and they will find you something to do.
And it's a bipartisan group as well. And whenever I see the word freedom on something, I get a little scared. But they do that on purpose. So it's actually a really great organization to get involved in because they are flipping people's minds. And
Thank you. Well, in just a second, well, I'll let the panelists, if you have just one more comment to go, starting with Rabbi again through there. But as they're thinking about any final comments, I just want us all to take a moment so much to thank the panelists for the education, your time, your commitment to this cause. Thank you so much. Thank you, David Thal, for the AV, Rabbi Katapan for the invocation. Really, thank you, Howard Pittler, for on the Beth Torah side for kind of spearheading this event. It was extremely helpful for all of us here and online. And both the Pittlers and other co-sponsors, the Pittlers Rosses, the Aronson Meltzers, and the Franklins for co-sponsoring tonight's event. And then after we let our panelists just make one more comment, we can enter the Ulam for a little bit more schmoozing, and Marcia Rittmaster and Susie Kilnock are out there and ready to help us all fill out our mail-in ballots or give you information about where you can go for early voting. Vivian Hamilton and Nicole Demanio will be selling their value here, her choice signs and stickers. Sarah Gordon made some beautiful stickers that are available to take home and distribute. And you may have noticed the banner from the National Council of Jewish Women out in the Ulam. You may want to take your picture there and post it to your social media with the hashtag Jews for Abortion Access. So again, the conversation, that's what I love about this. I think there's going to be a lot of follow-up conversations and engagement because of this event. So again, thank you all. But with that, maybe one more round for any other final comments from the panelists.
Actually, to address Maggie's comment or question about, like, are there other things happening? Yes. So if you go on Facebook and follow, I believe it's No for Kansans or Kansans Vote No. I can't remember if that's the name of it. Oh yeah, Vote No Kansas. Yes. So I just saw one. They're actually it was advertised. I think it's going to be in a couple weeks. It's for it's specifically targeted to the indigenous community, the Native American indigenous community. So yes, these types of conversations are happening in lots of different venues with lots of different groups. Part of the reason that we did this kind of hybrid program tonight was because I knew of two forces in the Jewish community who both wanted to share this message, and this was a way to harmonize us together instead of trying to do 2 separate events, which would only serve to divide us. So I think the Jewish community is pretty clear on this, but yes, other communities are assembling people as well. All you have to do is hop on Facebook, and you will find everything you want, and you will also find the things you don't want, so just steer away from those. Social media, I guess my message is social media is powerful. And the way that people can sometimes be vulnerable on social media can be, we can sometimes turn a blind eye to it, but if we also recognize the humanity in people who are willing to share their stories, it can be very powerful.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What we have historically learned is that when people feel like they have won an issue, they don't show up to vote. We lost. Show up to vote. Drive a neighbor, take a friend, get a grandkid, get somebody to go vote.
Thank you.
I think what Sarah said was so just very true. Find what you are good at. My friends are in the lobby right now, a group of moms who were, excuse my French, pissed at seeing the purple signs everywhere that started in, I feel like, April or May. We just couldn't believe those were out there. And it was before we had any from the Kansans for Constitutional Freedom or from the Kansas Dems. A group of women got together on a Facebook group, incidentally, and there was a woman who had just given birth who is a graphic designer, and she made this beautiful sign. They have other ones that also say value choice instead of value her choice, because obviously we know you don't have to be female to have a baby, you just have to own the parts, right? Yeah. So that was kind of my story, how I've been super involved in this, and then I just want to give a shout out to Marsha Rittmaster, who I'm sure everyone in this room knows and loves. She is a voter-to-voter ambassador, and she got me involved, although I haven't done as good a job as I should have, but I have had lots of conversations with people that I know don't vote in primaries, because I know their voter information now. So interestingly enough, have had lots of fun Shabbat dinners where I just randomly invite people over to talk. But that is the best thing. And I honestly think that just us being here and talking about this, because this is a primary election, people do not vote in primary elections. There's going to be a huge number of people voting, but it's going to take us also having some hard conversations. And I will just say this one thing. When I put up my value her choice sign, and I live at 132nd and Row, so if you're going down Row, there is this sign and then the vote no sign. It's ironic that it's on Row. But I had it up, right? Like I was like, I have to do it, right? Okay. I live in a mixed marriage. My husband has different political views, but we have the same, this is not okay. I put my sign up in the front, and then two of my other neighbors also put up purple signs. And it was a very heart-sickening day when I drove my kids to the J camp, because I love these neighbors. And you know, I took it down in the front just because I was like, you know what, it's on Row, we're fine. But it has led to some conversations. And there are hard conversations. And I honestly think that people do not understand that we already regulate abortion in the state of Kansas. It is already heavily regulated. So when people say that this is not a ban on abortion, why would they need to amend the Constitution in order? There's no reason other than they do want to have a total ban. And there was something in the news that just said someone was in the Reno convention, and he's like, from the Value Them Both, that said, this is what we intend to do. You know, but I honestly do think that people do not realize that we already regulate abortion. Yeah.
There are people who get well-respected people. I'm sorry.
Yes, let Marsha speak.
I was expecting you to go up all evening.
So there are well-respected people who get on television and tell lies.
Mm-hmm.
They tell lies. So it's our job to make it clear what the truth is. Mm-hmm. And you have to have these conversations, and you have to vote. And not only do you have to vote, you have to get 5 more people to vote. And that's what Voter to Voter does. If you want more information about it, I can tell you, but I'll tell you it works. And look, I'm not going to say we're going to win this fight, because I think it's really an uphill battle. We're here in Johnson County. We're not in western Kansas, and that's a whole different story there. But if you don't try, like Krista said, if you don't find something you're good at and try, then you're giving up, and you can't do that. I've been with Sue Ann and a few other friends. We've been going into retirement centers and helping people sign up for a vote by mail ballot. They're so appreciative. Nobody ever offered to help them do that before. What were we there, an hour, and probably signed up 20 people. We're going again tomorrow. Anyone want to go to Brookdale tomorrow at 10? I could use some help, because they're really sweet people and they just want a little help. But you got to find something that you're good at and do it, because you have to make it matter.
Thank you very much for adding that in. Lindsay, thank you.
I'm just I'm just going to share one thing really quick, and this is legit. I just oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, well, just hold that conversation for 1 second. We're going to let the doctor finish, and then again, the conversation is going to continue out in the Ulam. So this is final comment in this room, and then we're going to take 10 steps and continue it on.
I serve in an admin role in what I do, and I help oversee the practice in our health system. And I got a text literally, 20 minutes ago from one of my docs at St. Luke's North, and she says, "Hey, sorry to bother. Doing my first surgery for an ectopic since the law changed. It's got a heartbeat, not yet ruptured, but I've got to take her back to surgery because it's the right thing to do. I feel solid about this decision, but is there anything else I need to worry about? Not that concerned, but I just thought I should check in." She's in the OR with her right now. So, but she had to stop and think, should I really be doing this?
And then she had to take the time to send a text message for confirmation. Those minutes matter. This is how you kill women.
A somber note to end on this particular thing, but it is an important one because that is the impact. That is an example of the impact. So it's unfortunate we have to end on that somber note, but I think it's a perfect segue to kind of end this type of the conversation. And again, we can move on to the Ulam for more conversation and more opportunity to understand how we can individually get involved. Thank you again so much to our panelists and the folks that sponsored this event.